Well, greetings and salutations, one and all, to the one and only Super Review Show's Career Retrospectives, coming to you live once again from many caves. I am joined by my two esteemed panelists on our new software, Kyle and Mike. What's going on, guys?
Hey, digging the new software.
There you go.
So far, so good. We've been just so used to using Zoom for a while now, but I said it's time for an upgrade. It's time for us to move forward, not backwards. We're going to try that. But no, we're trying out a new software. So if you're listening to us, great. If not, you're watching us live, great. It's all good. But we're going to, as the title of our podcast suggests, alludes to, we're going to be breaking down and discussing our top 5 worst albums of 2024. We're at the end of the year. We've listened to a lot of music throughout the year. But we're going to go into and just break down our top 5 worst albums of 2024 that we have either discussed or listened to that came out this year in 2024. And Kyle said he would go first. So what do you got, my friend, for 2024? What do you got, bud?
Yeah, I mean, 2024 was pretty, it was pretty mid, not going to lie. I thought there was a lot of just real mid releases here. Some real bad ones. Before I give my number 5, I'm going to give 2 dishonorable mentions here that came this close to making it. Pearl Jam's Dark Matter and Bon Jovi's last record. Wow. Train wreck for Bon Jovi on that one. I'm sorry for anyone that liked it. But going into it this year, I gotta give my number 5 to MGK and Trippie Redd's Genre Sad Boy project. That was horrendous. This is the worst thing Machine Gun Kelly has put out. The two of them, I've always thought have had very weak features, even when they're on each other's tracks, not even a full record of a collaboration. So putting it on here just didn't work well. Seems like fans of both artists just did not like this project at all. I definitely get why it's boring. To be honest, I almost forgot that it even came out this year. It was just so forgettable. The best parts on it, surprisingly, aren't even Machine Gun Kelly, who I'm usually a fan of, but Trippie Redd had parts on here that were better than MGK. I don't know, this seemed like a directionless project from the two of them. I get that you're friends, you want to do something together, but maybe we don't need a whole album of this. Also, cringy topics discussed in the tracks here. Cringy album name. Just total cringe fest all around from both of them. Did not like this at all. So, having Machine Gun Kelly promise a rap album from the beginning of this year, said it would be coming this year, and I guess he trashed it. So this being his only real output other than a couple of singles throughout the course of 2024, this being his album this year was atrocious. Big disappointment there.
All right, that is Kyle's number 5. I'm going to go over to my number 5 for me personally. And this is actually one that came out this year, and I listened to it only because, well, it's difficult to explain that. Well, it's actually not that difficult. I'm not a fan of them whatsoever. I'm not sure how you guys feel about 21 Pilots, but they did release an album this year, and I only gave it any credit where credit could be given was because I did see them live in 2018 on the Bandito tour, and that was kind of a mistake of a concert to go to. But the album was called Clancy by 21 Pilots. I'm going to be upfront with everyone here. I am not a 21 Pilots guy whatsoever. Even though I did see him live, the show was like okay, and it was very entertaining for the time, whatever. But I couldn't get into them the way I thought that I could initially when the Bandito tour was going on and Chlorine was all over the radio and stuff like that. I said, all right, cool. Let me go see the show, whatever. Show was good, whatever. I didn't really expect too much. But then this came out. I was very not a fan of it. It's just not my style of music. They are not my style of music. The two of them are just not. I'm not a big fan of them to begin with. And having them come out with this new album, unfortunately, some people are like, "Oh, could you say that?" But I just can't. I'm just not a fan of them whatsoever. And going into this, I was very, very torn on it just wasn't good alternative music. Was not good pop or rock, whatever you want to call it. I'm not a fan of them whatsoever. But I did listen to it and I was not satisfied with it, whatever. But so my number 5 is actually 21 Pilots Clancy. Believe it or not, if you guys can believe that they put out another album. But
I actually had no idea they put out an album. Gonna be completely honest with you. Didn't even know this happened this year.
Well, you might want to hear it just so you can hear how.
I don't know if I do. I do.
Maybe you shouldn't. At this point, you probably shouldn't. But yeah, no, but it's. Let's just say let's very not. I would say it's mid to bad, but that's also just my personal preference for them. Like I said, I saw them live, and I'm not a big fan of like Stressed Out or Ride or whatever when they were huge. But that's just me. But anyways, not even the Icy tour in 2022. I was like, whatever. I could care less. But anyways, 21 Pilots Clancy is my number 5 for the year. Mike, what do you got for your number 5, buddy?
All right, so I'm going to preface my list with most of the stuff on my list is stuff that we reviewed. I'm pretty picky with the music I listen to, and I've kind of handpicked a lot of the stuff I've listened that I knew I was going to like. And if it wasn't something I liked, I really kind of, didn't really super do a review on it, or I just kind of stayed to stuff that I really liked. So most of the stuff that I didn't like, we listened to, and I decided I didn't like. So, and this one's kind of interesting for the number 5. I kind of revisited this and realized the expectation for this album, the name brand, really needed a home run, and what we got was an attempt at just rekindling the idea that they are uncancelable and just the kind of king of kind of just hitting anybody where they can get at them about whatever. And that was Eminem's most recent release. I just came back to that as a number 5, and it just the pressure you need to hit a home run. This album really fell flat. It felt just more like that stirring a controversy, and a lot of the tracks on there were just kind of forgettable, besides the Houdini and maybe Brand New Dance. Like, there was just not much on this album that I could really pick up and get into. And when you have a name like Eminem, it's just one of those kinds of albums that really needs to have multiple Houdini-like songs on it, which are all like super have staying power, memorable. And that's something this album failed to do. Is it really kindled the legend of Slim Shady and Eminem and all this kind of thing, and it did less of a job at kind of creating music that was really going to live through the ages and kind of join the already massive amount of songs that Eminem has put out, and have really built a big playlist of music that someone could say, here's an example of good songwriting, or all that. So yeah, just after revisiting this one, I just realized, man, that was not good, and it just got worse as time went by. Yeah, so the number 5 would be Eminem's most recent album.
All right, we're going over to number 4. Kyle, what do you got for your number 4 worst album of the year?
My number 4 is actually one that I wouldn't say it surprised me that it ended up on this part of my list, but it did have a lot of hype behind it leading up to it throughout the year after it was announced. And it's actually not by a singular artist. It is a compilation. It is the Disney's A Whole New Sound compilation, which was their they got together a ton of pop punk superstars, for lack of a better word, including like Simple Plan, Mayday Parade, Newfound Glory, Bowling for Soup, Boys Like Girls, Yellow Card, We the Kings, huge names, and had them cover songs from Disney movies. Now, on paper, yeah, that's exactly as lame as it sounds. But hearing Simple Plan's Can You Feel the Love Tonight, when that was the lead single off of this, I was like, oh, maybe it won't be too bad. It's going to be a little bit campy, and it's going to be exactly what you expect. The only salvageable songs on this thing are Simple Plan's Can You Feel the Love Tonight and Boys Like Girls, You'll Be in My Heart. The reason those work is because those were songs that were not they were written for Disney movies, but they were not songs that were sang like by characters in the movie. A lot of these tracks are don't work out of context of the movie, don't work out of like a musical environment, and it sounds so lame just hearing some of these artists. We're also about 20 years too late for this kind of compilation. You know, even maybe 10 years ago, it could have been, you know, passable as somewhat cool. But, you know, for the amount of crap that people give Disney adults, this is not the way to shake that reputation that Disney adults have. Um, it's weird. This was not for me. Even Bowling for Soup, who I thought could do fantastic on this, had one of the worst covers of this. Plain White Tees was doing some weird rapping thing on theirs. This was just not good at all. Honestly, huge disappointment because this had some bands that I'm a pretty big fan of on it. And I think that for almost all those bands on here, this is the worst thing I've ever heard from each one of them, respectively.
All right, it's over to me, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so there I was minding my own business, right? Kind of just doing my thing, and I was like, you know what? So I said my number 5 was Clancy by Tom, I must say Tom Petty by 21 Pilots. It pains me to say this because I know that I know for a fact this is probably on Kyle's one of his best of the 2024 album. But for me, I just whenever there's an album that I enjoy that comes out in a year, I typically go back to a good amount of the tracks in it, or I go back to just about anything with it. And unfortunately, I just could not come to when we did our career discography breakdown for them. I enjoyed several of their albums, but not all of them by much. And when this one came out earlier this year, I was like, you can go back and listen to our initial review of it, but I was just not a fan of this one whatsoever. And that it's Bring Me the Horizons. Was it their new album that came out? The new post gen. I went back and I listened to it just to give it like another shot, and I was just not like that as much as I wanted to give it another shot and get into it. I just couldn't come to the realization of like, okay, this is where they're at now. And this is coming from a guy who actually likes a couple of their albums when we broke down their career, their discography. But I went back and listened to it about a week or two ago, and I was like, I just couldn't get into the tracks. I thought I gave another shot after listening to it when we did our initial review. I just could not get into it. This is just my number 4. Unfortunately, it did not. I thought with time, like with it kind of like pushing off to the side and then coming back to it, I thought it would give me a little hope. But unfortunately, no. This one just my number 4, unfortunately. And my next 3 is going to surprise both of you, but we'll see about that. Anyways, that's my number 4 for Bring Me the Horizon post gen, next gen. Excuse me. Anyways, Mike, what do you got for number 4?
Now I will also add one album, not to this list, but like Kyle was kind of saying, like honorable mentions. I heard a lot of chatter about some of the best albums of the year, including The Cure's new album. I can't remember the title of it. It was overrated by a large margin, and I couldn't see what everyone got into it. That's not my 4th one, but I just wanted to mention that. I really got hyped up over it, and I was definitely disappointed in that. Kyle's, I'm sure, celebrating. But anyway, my number 4 album was Post Malone's F1 Trillion. This was definitely the crossover none of us really want. I mean, what can I say? Every pop, rock, rap act is trying to cash in on the very accessible genre that really requires you to just say the usual buzzwords: truck, broke up with my wife, lost my dog, etc., etc. Have the clout by showcasing the relevant acts: Dolly Parton, Chris Stapleton, Blake Shelton, Hank Williams, Tim McGraw, Brad Paisley, Luke Combs, Jelly Roll. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss anyone? I mean, there's like probably another 4 names in there that honestly, like, the man uses as a trampoline to jump into a genre that just, I feel, really has lost a meaning to it of like what it means to be what you're talking about and just to sound what you're talking about. I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but it really used to be something that kind of carried with it a spirit and a definition of a man's life. Now has just become a parody. So in that, you end up the sacrifice is losing most of your sound in the process to cross over, but was it worth the crossover? The album was overall forgettable. It only showcased a couple songs that really blended Post Malone's style with country and had a happy marriage. Most of the time, it was not a happy marriage. It was just a nod and homage to many other artists' sounds that he was kind of borrowing and catapulting off of. The only songs I really liked on it were, Goes Without Saying, Losers, Missing You, like this, etc. But they weren't great songs. They were just okay on the scale of being able to like keep part of yourself in the equation enough that it was recognizable. And that pretty much for the most part was what was wrong with that album. It's just the crossover I don't think anyone really wants, but they accept because he does have good chops in writing. It's just sometimes I feel like he loses focus by trying to define himself within the genre bending that he has done with many different albums. His last album was actually growing on me to a greater degree, which is why I put this on this list, because the expectation for what was to come sometimes allows an artist to make a bad list because you look forward to what they're going to do, and when they don't live up to it, when they completely try to show off the ability to pull something else off, it really clouds their progress. So yeah, for me, Post Malone's F1 Trillion just didn't hit the mark, and it felt like about a man and a bunch of famous country stars trying to kind of hold him up, but it just came off like as a flat attempt.
All right, Kyle, number 3. What do you got?
My number 3 is actually someone that's been on a decline for almost 10 years now. Huge superstar, but this album was just not good. Katy Perry's 143, however you're supposed to say it. This was, I'm not surprised that it was bad. I'll start by saying that. But when it came out in the lead single, Woman's World, when that was, I first heard that, it was a standard pop song. I was like, all right, maybe she's going back to just trying to have like a couple like pop bangers on the radio. I didn't like that song. But when that was somehow, to my surprise, one of the 2 better tracks from this project, I was astounded, especially considering that's the first track. And the only other salvageable track was the closer of the album, Wonder. That I thought was actually a decent track on that one. But everything else, every other of the 9 songs that make up the rest of the album, are some of the worst things I think that she has ever put out on record. And, that even goes for her pre-Katy Perry, Katie Hudson stuff that I heard. I mean, having some like those rap features on here sounded terrible. She's going for some not quite hyper pop, like she didn't lean fully into that. And I think maybe we would have been better if she did. But she's going for more like electronic on here, some like dance inspired stuff, and it just does not work. She's trying to reclaim, that Katy Perry sound of the late 2000s and early 2010s when she was on top of the world, and it just does not work here at all. There was nothing memorable. In fact, every one of these tracks, minus the 2 that I mentioned, made me want to turn them off immediately. I mean, even down to the features that she selected just are so, they just scream desperation and trying to remain relevant. Like having 21 Savage on a song sounded terrible. Kim Petras, they had a moment a little while ago. I actually like some of their songs, but this did not work together. It, massive disappointment considering I actually really enjoyed her first 3 records. And then since then, it's just really taken a nosedive, and she just keeps trying to fix it and digging herself deeper and deeper into that hole. Maybe it's time to hang it up and stick to American Idol, unfortunately. tour the hits and call it a day.
I actually forgot about this album. I might have to listen to it just around merit, but just to see how bad it is, because I remember it coming up and I was like, oh, I forgot that she was touring after this too. So yeah, actually in a similar vein to Kyle, but maybe not to the same extent. But this one actually is my number 3 is, believe it or not, is actually I didn't listen to Katy Perry, so I can't comment on that. But I will say this though, I almost forgot that this album came out this year too, and it was Beyonce's. What was it? Country Carter, her country album,
Cowboy Carter,
whatever it was called.
only reason it didn't make mine because I didn't even listen to it. Everything I heard from this was awful.
Yeah, listen. I'm not one to bash like women, female artists, because there are some artists like Taylor Swift. There's Demi Lovato's. There's other artists that Meghan Trainor, like that. Actually, I like. I'm not anti-women artists, but I will say that I'm not a Beyonce fan. That might sound like a really controversial opinion to say, but I don't like.
You know what, JT? I'll take it a step further for you so you can stop trying to defend yourself on it. Beyonce's terrible. Beyonce has always been terrible. Destiny's Child, not good. Sorry, Beyonce fans. She's overrated. I agree with JT here. Now, JT, you can be a slightly less of a villain. Go ahead.
Oh boy, the Queen Bee fans, or whatever they're called, the Beehive. I don't know.
The Beehives.
They're coming after you, man. You better not be allergic to a good stink.
Texas Hold'em was the lead single of that came out. I just wasn't. Oh, needless to say, I actually listened to this when it came out, and I was like, "Is the world okay? Like, let's be real, okay? Let's actually be real for a split second. Is the world okay with Beyonce in general in 2024? My answer to that is no. I don't hate her. I've met people who hate her, but that's besides the point. This is just not good. Not really. Just I don't want to go any further, but this is my number 3, believe it or not. So it's Country Carter, whatever you want to call it, Cowboy Carter, whatever this disaster was. No. If I'm sorry to all the Beyonce fans out there, good for you, but yuck. I'm done. Mike, what's your number 3?
Moving along and just stuff we reviewed again. I can't speak on a lot of the modern pop albums that came out this year. I don't have too many on that list, but just sticking to what we reviewed, the Pinhead Gunpowder album. Yeah, that was just yikes. That was just something I was not prepared to, kind of have to encounter. And, most of those kinds of albums I probably wouldn't listen to all the way through. I would have heard it and shut it off. But that's what makes this channel kind of interesting, is you have to listen to the whole thing all the way through continuously and develop an opinion on it. I've struggled in that area from time to time. If I listen to an album and I'm kind of not liking it, I don't, as a reviewer, this is the first time I've ever had to be put in a reviewer's chair, more so not just to surround myself with music that I love. So, that was just the same song, just kind of the boring drumming, this generic Cali kind of punk copy and paste throughout the whole album kind of vibe going. It didn't really have that identity to call its own. It was just a kind of callback to something, but taking the worst elements of that callback from the past punk days. It definitely did not do anything for me to really freshen up the sound at any point during the album. It only had a couple of songs, Difficult But Not Impossible, Green was not a unique song, but I liked it because it was unique to the album and just for something to, give me something else to latch onto. There's only a few moments on this. So definitely, like I said, this album is this list is not a definitive list of the worst music in the country. There's a lot worse than this album, but I again, to preface that, from what I encountered during 2024 and listened to as a reviewer, this was something I came across that I personally did not like. I can't say that it was worse than other things out there, but it sure was something that I did not expect to be so stale in one note.
All right, let's jump over to Kyle's number 2. What do you got, buddy?
My number 2 is actually by an artist that released 2 artists, actually, that released 2 albums this year. Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign's Vultures 2. So the Vultures 1 came out earlier in the year, around like February. While I wasn't super into that, it had some tracks on there that had some pretty good takeaways, like songs I still go back to, like Carnival. That was a pretty big song. That was very well. Problematic, also a good song. I had a couple others on there as well that Back to Me had a few good songs. Had some garbage on that too, as most modern Kanye projects do, unfortunately. But when Vultures 2 came out in the summer, it's night and day, which is saying something from an album. Vultures 1, I didn't think it was anything great. It's definitely not anywhere near Kanye's best. But Vultures 2 is, I don't know how they let this happen. I don't know how they put this out there. Kanye, he's just surrounded by a bunch of yes men in his life now. That's no surprise. Like, Kanye is going to put out what Kanye puts out. And even with this album, he did his thing where he put it out and he rearranged the track list and updated things. He's been doing that for 10 years now almost. But if I was Ty Dolla $ign, I wouldn't want my name associated with this project at all. It doesn't even feel like a complete cohesive album. It just sounds like a bunch of babbling, rambling nonsense about nothing. And it's 16 tracks of it. This is terrible. Kanye has ruined his legacy in more ways than one over the past 2-3 years. It's unfortunate to see the road that Kanye has gone down. He still puts out some good music here and there, but he really needs to stop and get his shit together. He needs to have people surround him that aren't just going to yes him and let him throw out whatever he wants, whenever he wants. He needs some kind of structure, because when he actually makes good music, he makes great music. When he makes terrible music, it's some of the worst music in years. I was astounded listening to this album. It's actually upsetting to hear someone with Kanye's level of, past creativity be devolved into a project like this. Now, I know that it's come out over the past couple months, maybe a few months ago, that he's been hooked on like laughing gas or whatever from his dentist that he has on demand all the time. I'm sure that really played a part in this, but please, someone get Kanye back in check. I would like Kanye to be back to making good music again. It's been a while since we had a truly great Kanye project. I think the last one, in my opinion, was Ye, and that was years ago now. This was just a pathetic excuse for an album. I thought a third one was going to be coming out too. It doesn't seem like that has happened, at least yet. If the quality drop between 1 and 2 was this bad, I can't even imagine what could possibly even be on 3. And I'm scared to even attempt to guess what that is. So, unfortunate that I have to put him on here, but yeah, Kanye and Ty Dolla $ign's Vultures 2, huge disappointment, huge absolute stinker on this one. Couldn't believe what I heard throughout all 16 tracks here. Not a single salvageable moment.
Ouch. Yeah, that just doesn't sound good at all, my friend. Let's jump back over to me for my number 2. Now, this should come as no surprise whatsoever. If you know me, this is just... And this is an album that we reviewed thoroughly. And actually, I will say, Kyle, I hate to disappoint your brother, but Quedeca's Scrapyard. I can't even spell it right, but Scrap.
Quedeca?
Yeah.
That's also his alter ego. He's gonna release.
I just this is just for those of you who remember anything and listen to us for any period of time. We reviewed Quidecca's I Didn't Mean to Haunt You. I think in 2020 was it 2? I think there was that. Yeah. And this is like the next. Yeah, I think it was 2022. This is the next album of Quidecca's catalog. I remember I remember listening. When you remember listening to an album, but you don't remember any of the music or anything about the album, that's not good. And that's what we got here with Quidecca's Scrapyard. Your brother's gonna find me and kill me, but unfortunately, but this is just it's. If you've never heard Quidecca's Scrapyard, it's literally nothing. There's very, very, very extremely minimal instrumentation. It's kind of just sounds at this point. It's not even, I would not call it music. I would call it sounds. This is just not good at all. I actually forgot this came out this year until I looked back at our list. I was like, oh my God, that's right. Not a fan of it whatsoever. Just not a good album. And if Quidecca had more instrumentation, if he had more, like just something more than just what we got, then it might be better. But in this case, it was just awful. And the very fact that I remember Kyle, I think I remember Kyle saying, if there was more everything, it would be better. I think he said something like that. But it's just the truth. If there was just more anything, it might be more salvageable as an album. But the fact that there was nothing on here just is kind of embarrassing, truthfully. Needless to say, but that's just me. But I know someone's going to kill me for that. That's my number 2. Is Quidecca's because it literally is a scrapyard. There's nothing in it. Anyways, Mike, what do you got for your number 2?
Well, I'm gonna copy you, sir.
Oh, you are copying me?
Yes, sir. Because that is my number 2 on the list. That was horrible. It definitely is an album I would, and again, like, and I don't sound like a broken record, but I would never encounter this record. I would never listen to this record because I wouldn't be forced to listen to this record. Again, that's I have very little history that will disappoint itself because I've generally picked out a handful of artists that have all kind of done pretty good, more than a handful, but like pretty much know what I'm expecting. This guy is consumed by his own genius, his own desire to be different, and his desire to be experimental. And when you're consumed by that, you tend to like forget all the rules, like you guys are saying. You forget all the rules and the elements of music that make for music that is enjoyable and memorable. You forego those in order to showcase the experimental, hollow, kind of compressed and disjointed style he's presenting here as a way of being on the forefront of this kind of music he's creating and the style he's creating. But when you create a style that's so alien to a lot of different ears, you kind of put yourself in a bubble in a corner, and you don't allow yourself to break through to a market that wants to hear what else you can bring to the table. It's very self-aware. It's scattered in its composition. It's double downing on the idea that it's not ordinary and that it's strange. And in that is, losing the battle of like getting into the ears. You got David Bowie, who knew he was strange, but he still used all these different kinds of things within the pop music genre, the bass lines, the throwbacks to like jazz, the throwbacks to like different types of styles, experimental stuff, but it all lived on an island of familiarity to the listener. And that's what really makes the difference between a good artist and an artist who's trying really hard to define themselves in the terms that they've set forward for themselves. And it fails to realize that it's forgettable, and it'll not live on, but it dies today. It's just going to be something of the today and not of tomorrow. And that's it's ultimately gotten a lot of hype and a lot of focus because of how bold it is in staying true to itself, but in that it's failed to prove that it can be it can stand the test of time. So yeah, Quedeca's Shipyard, Scrap, almost called Shipyard because it was a sinking ship, but Scrapyard, it's something that like as I encounter another album from an artist who I become familiar with who disappoints me, I begin to not be interested in hearing what the next album is. And this is kind of strike 2 for the guy. Where the next one will be strike 3, and that'll be a distant memory in my attention. So yeah, Rebecca Scrapyard.
All right, Kyle, we waited all year for this. Your number one worst album of 2024 is Green
Don't
Day.
disappoint me, Kyle.
Well,
Green Day Saviors. Let's go.
I know that Mike, I have a feeling I know exactly what Mike's number one is going to be. JT, I don't know what yours is going to be. I'm surprised it wasn't this one because this is my number one, Quedeca's Scrapyard. I won't repeat things too much, but this is a steaming pile of garbage. This is awful. I don't care who's upset by it. You can't, unless you're trying to be a pretentious douche, like be like Anthony Fantano, like, look at this experimental garbage I listen to. Aren't I cool? You just don't understand the psychedelics he's throwing in there. It's layered like the 1930s piece by blah blah blah. Shut up. This is garbage. He put out a bunch of tracks that aren't finished. They're literally scraps of unfinished work. This is the modern day equivalent of the Beach Boys' Smile Sessions. It's not meant to be something. And that's another one of my least favorite albums of all time I've ever heard. It is not meant to be something to be listened to like an album. But when you put it out there as such, at least the Beach Boys record had like the tracks were like a couple seconds long sometimes. They weren't fully fleshed out. This album is full of songs that are 3, sometimes a little bit longer, minutes long. These are what would be constituted as full songs, but none of them feel that way. It feels like he didn't know how to finish a majority of these and was like, you know what? Screw it. I don't know what album to put this on. We're just going to throw it out there. My fans are going to listen to it and buy it up and it'll be fine. And you know what? To his props and defense on that, it worked. On Rate Your Music, this is the number 2 ranked mixtape of 2024. It is the number 24 overall mixtape ranked on Rate Your Music of all time. But do you know the majority of the user base of Rate Your Music? It's those people I was just talking about. You pretentious Anthony Fantano-like people who think that anything that can be slightly experimental is good. Experimental does not equal good. I can't stress that enough. Experimental can be good if you actually finish your ideas. Use it to your advantage. I mean, on this album, he tries to do some like pop work. He tries to do some like a little bit of electronics and atmospheric work with a little bit of like some badly tuned like folk guitars here and there. But he does none of it well. And this is coming from someone that was, I've never been a fan of the guy. I've never liked him. I've never liked his releases. His voice has always been a huge grating factor whenever I listen to him. But his record before this, was I Didn't Mean to Haunt You, had some promise to it. That one, it wasn't a bad record. Actually, Fantasy World from that album was actually a great track. And it had a couple others that were good, and it showed promise. Why after that you would release this, it's absolutely beyond me, other than to try to keep any kind of hype up in the meantime while you work on something actually good, maybe. I don't know. It feels like a cop-out even having this as my number one, but I had to do it. It's the only reason it's worse than Kanye is because at least Kanye tried to finish the songs. I feel like this guy just didn't even put any thought into it. It was like, yeah, there's some demos I have laying around. Mix and master them, and here you go. Have at it. So, yeah, I'm curious to see what your guys' number ones are, because I thought this one was a shoo-in for a total, like, sweeping the board worst album of the year. So, interesting.
I feel like Mike and I are going to agree on this number one. I'm very curious to see what he has to say about this. But So anyone who knows me for any period of time, personal life, podcasting, YouTube, whatever, it's one thing I can't do without smiling. It's one thing to release something to the mainstream and have it be critically acclaimed and universally acclaimed, which we got a couple years. I'm not saying that this artist is on a downgrade. I just think that this person needs to get rid of the said producer and, dear God, just release something else. This is the second time this has happened. The Tortured Poets Department by Taylor Swift. I can't even spell it right. I'm going to spell it wrong. Tortured.
Torch.
Whatever.
like actually throw like a torch. I would love to.
Okay, whatever. We're gonna do that later.
Do you guys
T-O-R.
do number one together? Because I have a feeling I know what Mike's is.
I 100%. Listen, I love Taylor Swift.
Putting this worse than Scrapyard's wild, guys.
Okay, like it's mainly because
It's mid as hell, but come on.
I feel like Mike's gonna agree with me on this, unfortunately. I don't know. We're gonna find out. But dear God, listen, it's not about again, we said this when Midnights came out. It's not about the actual, to me, this is less about the album and more about how today's society, if Taylor Swift, especially in the 2020s moving forward, if Taylor Swift put out a new album, it's going to be the most streamed, most charted, successful thing out there. And the very fact, I'm going to cry in a second because it's just like, I'm sorry. Like, if Taylor, if you're out there listening to us, I know you're not, but if you're out there listening to us, switch your producer now. Go back to someone else who's a little bit more fun-oriented, like a little like Lover or 1989 or Red. Go back to that, or go back to your country routes, or do a rock album for all I care. Like, just that's the one genre she has not touched yet. So who knows? 2025? No, I'm just kidding. Taylor Swift saves rock and roll. It's a book title waiting to happen. But no, this was just when Kyle. You know, it's funny. Whenever we do our podcast, this is actually, I think this is crazy. Kyle's thoughts linger in my brain a little bit more than Mike's. And just in general, I woke up one morning, actually, and the first thing I thought was Kyle saying, not just that, JT, all 35 or however, whatever the track listing was, all of these songs, including Cool Summer, are on the Hot 100 right now. And for whatever reason, when I woke up that morning, I thought of that. I said, yeah, that album was not that great. I'm sorry, Taylor Swift. I love you. You're one of my favorite artists, too, of modern music. But dear God, this is so mid. This is so not her style, pun intended. I just think that she could do so much better with and the fact that I went to Target on Black Friday and I saw the line of girls getting the Tortured Poets Department from Target, like the Super Target Deluxe Edition thing. I said to myself, what's happening to the world that
you mean like the CD that I got on Black Friday from Target right over there on my shelf?
Sorry,
that one, JP.
No, I think it was the vinyl. I could be wrong, but it was just.
But they were sold out of the vinyl by the time I got there, and I got there like very shortly after they opened.
Oh dear God. Well, anyways, yes, unfortunately, I think that's the case. But like, no, I hate to be that guy. I don't go back to this, and this is someone who goes back to Taylor Swift quite frequently. She was actually one of my most listened to artists. Like, a lot of her songs, they're from like Red or 1989 or even Lover, were in my Spotify Wrapped of 2024. A lot of them were, but not from Folklore Evermore, Midnights, or the Tortured Poets Department. I just can't. It's just it's not. I'm not angry at her, but I'm just like, Taylor, you need to do a rock album, feature Joe Elliott of Def Leppard, and call it a day. Like let's be real. Like, she just needs to change her style, get like help, just get someone else to produce her. She has all the talent in the world, and we've said this before, that she is popular because she is talented. She writes a lot of her music by herself, if not with one, maybe two other people. But this is just so mid-level. The only one I only remember one song, which I only remember two songs: the title track and Fortnite. unfortunately. And that's not saying much because I don't remember anything else about that album except just it's being like quiet and not really. It's so. Oh my god, help me, just help me. I love Taylor Swift. I dance to Shake It Off. I'm not afraid to admit it. I do that a lot, believe it or not. It's unfortunately my detox feature for the day. But yes, this is just a disaster. And actually, I would say Scrapyard is like just below this, truthfully. Like they're nearly neck and neck, but this one is just like it's more just a disappointment. Like, I love Taylor Swift.
Oh, there you go.
Over here. I'm sorry.
I think Taylor cut the feed to your camera, like with her voodoo magic or whatever.
I don't know what she did there, but let's be real.
Yeah.
I just her voodoo magic. But no, in all seriousness, though, I just can't. I'm sorry. I love Taylor Swift. She's an incredibly talented person, but this is not her best effort. If we did a career discography breakdown for her, I'm very curious to see what our ranking would be.
I think we all put it at the bottom. I mean, this is by far and away her worst work, without a doubt.
I mean,
I don't disagree and argue with it being towards the bottom of the year. I disagree with it being lower than Scrapyard.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, we agree and disagree.
I don't go back to this outside of like 2 songs at all, and that's out of like 35 tracks.
The title track, I'm not even a fan of, bro. Like, and that's coming from me. So, oh dear God. Anyways, I digress. No, but my number one, unfortunately, is, and I say unfortunately, meaning it like it's Taylor Swift's The Tortured Poets Department. I just when you see the aesthetic for it, you're like, oh, it's a jazz album. It's gonna be great. It's gonna have like a weird jazzy feel to it. Almost. No, it was not that at all. I can't remember even listening to it. That's how much I remember about it. So, wah. Unfortunately, Taylor Swift is my number one most disappointed. More disappointed than it. I wouldn't say it's like it's very mid, but it's just so I can't right now. I'm sorry, guys. I hate to be that guy. Anyways, Taylor Swift number one. Mike, did you agree with me?
All right. So, going back and re-echoing the point of a top bad list is not to go and find the nobodies and beat them to death. They're nobodies. Quadica, his Scrapyard. Sorry, my bad. Quadica, however you pronounce it. Beating up on him, he's a speck in the ocean of a greater community of music that deserves criticism. He just makes weirdo music, and I'm picking on him because we listened to it and like focused on it. But that doesn't mean that like he has a discography that is massive and like it was a major disappointment that he put this out. It was a continued disappointment, and it was just kind of like it's another day at the office. But when you have artists like Eminem, you have Taylor Swift, you have these massive artists who have such high hopes and such a body of work that needs answer and needs continuation and like keeping that progress going. That's where the hate exists. Like I see some of these hate for like these artists that no one cares about or like that are up and coming that are just disappointing. No, the true disappointment needs to be directed at those who have such massive bodies of work, and I can give the top part to none other than Taylor Swift's Tortured Society Department. It is a lightning rod for criticism in that Taylor Swift released it. It is either going to be gold or it is going to be lead, and it cannot be changed into gold because it is pretentious in that she released 35 songs on a massive double, triple, whatever album, whatever you want to call this thing, and that all of the songs, even the crap ones, made it into the top charts, brings the light of criticism to kind of into the age of kind of clicks and streams, and to kind of bring another artist into the light of this. Like Blink 182, they're One More Time Part 2. They need to continue the clicks and streams and relevancy by getting music out there, even if it's just cuts on the floor of the of the cutting room and music. Get your name out there. Get as much content out there as possible, because more hours equals more money. And in an age where no one's buying music, and you aren't judged by how many albums you sold, but how long people have listened to your music, Taylor Swift had no other victory but to release a ton of music that her ravenous fans would blindly consume without a real proof that it is good or has any kind of difference. It's barely musical in nature. It's simple beats. And this is coming from an artist who's done tons of music in nature. That's the difference between Quedeca and Taylor Swift. Quedeca has continued that barely musical journey, whereas Taylor Swift went for the last 2 albums straight, has barely touched a musical like direction. It's all just been whispery, like electronic, plodding, boring music, unimpressive singing, no command at all. Releasing that many songs is going to land you in a place where you're either gonna sink or swim. The album was the embodiment of just the lack of like creative difference. There was no creative difference here. Every track could literally mirror itself, and it had minor differences. Either everyone liking this is under a trance, or I'm in on the biggest joke where we all pretend an artist is amazing, and it really is just a big joke that we're all going to go, just kidding. We're like, not, we're all just not a fan of this. Like, not her old stuff, but these last 2 albums straight have been absolute a dog's breakfast. So, Fortnite is okay. It's the only song on the album that I could remember as I went through this again to kind of listen to it. It was just, toss it out the window, forgettable, kind of just pop, and it just didn't at any time ever flex the muscles of like melody and like harmony and any of the other things you use in songs to really drive home like a memorable quality. So yeah, like, just to put that out there, I'm not gonna pick some random artist like that I can easily destroy and put out an absolutely horrible album. The hate's going to come to the ones at the top, and like Eminem's, the Taylor Swifts, the Post Malones. These are the people that are currently sitting on top of the world, and like, you can't just get a free pass. You need to put out quality, or and of course, what am I saying? The world thought this was an absolute masterpiece, and it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So other than that, it was just did not deserve its fame and fortune that it was awarded to this year, and just I don't know what's going on. So yeah, definitely Taylor Swift's Tortured Poet Society. I apologize to the greater Taylor Swift fan base. I'm sure they're sharpening their axes, and they're getting ready to torture me with a TORCH. Hit me with a torch, So,
well, I just want it to be just take a minute to think about the amount of fan bases that we have pissed off in one hour here. Let's see, we got the Disney people, we got the Kanye fans, the underground Quedeca fans, the 21 Pilot and Bring Me the Horizon fan bases,
Beyonce,
Eminem, Post Malone. I mean, we've pissed off a lot of people now.
The Beyonce Queen Bees,
Beyonce,
yep. Man. Yep.
Oh,
there
God.
You go, man.
Well, we did a hell of a job tonight, gentlemen. Do we have anything else to say? And then that's our ratings for the year.
I just hope 2025 is going to be a year of
great releases.
But I
hope so.
This
year was just so. Other than these that are, I would say there's probably the only ones outside of the 2 dishonorable mentions I gave that were actually just bad albums. But most of this year was just so mediocre. So many artists, even ones that I love, put out such just mid-tier work that they could do so much better. So I can't wait for 2025, and I hope that it's significantly better than what we got this year. Yeah. But you know what? This is why I really like these videos that we do toward the end of the year, because I think out of every time we've done a worst stuff list, this is the most varied one, where there are only 2 albums that got on multiple lists.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Anything else you guys have to say, or I think we wrapped up this.
All she wrote.
That's all
That's
she
it.
wrote. We want to thank you for watching, listening, however you enjoyed us tonight. And so ultimately, that's our top 5 worst of the year. Now, tune in not next Monday, because next Monday is the 23rd. We have Christmas that week, and we agreed to not do a show that week. But tune in the following Monday before New Year's, live on our YouTube channel and our podcast feed, wherever you got them, for our top 5 best albums of 2024. That should be an interesting list for sure. But ultimately, it's what you have to say there. Please sign off in the comment section below of our video. Don't forget to follow us on our social media pages, simply at The Super Review Show, simply on Facebook and Instagram. Q&A podcast is not returning yet, right?
Nope. Hiatus.
Gotcha. Was not sure. Just want to check on that. So, yeah. But ultimately, thanks so much for watching us and have enjoyed us. For all of us here at the Super Review Show's Retrospectives, and one more episode this year in 2 weeks. Stay safe. Take care, and have a great night.
bless.
And God bless.
Gesundheit.